Oh, well, it started automatically. I forgot that Joy had turned that on. Okay, so she's gonna have to leave that part. All right, welcome everybody. I can see y'all are coming in here. We still got a couple minutes till we get started, but we went ahead and started on our end, so you can get in and hang tight for a couple minutes, and then we'll officially get started here. All right, we're about to get started here. I think I have enabled chat so the participants can use the chat. Can somebody type something in the chat just to make sure that y'all have that capability? Anything? Hello, hi. Somebody type something in the chat. Hello, thank you, Al. All right, so welcome everybody to our last session of the day today. This is DLG Newspaper Digitization 101, and we have two folks from the Digital Library of Georgia who are going to be presenting, Donnie and Daniel, and I'm going to turn it over to them and let them introduce themselves. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Donnie Summerlin. I'm the Digital Projects Archivist at the Digital Library of Georgia, where I've been working on newspaper digitization for 17 years now. And our other presenter is Daniel Britt. He is the NDNP, Georgia NDNP Project Manager, and he's been working on newspapers for 9 years, including newspaper microfilming. So he has a lot of experience in that area as well. So let me share my slides with you all. Okay, great. So, hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to talk with you about digitizing newspapers with the Digital Library of Georgia, and we'll walk you through what it looks like to partner with us to have your local papers digitized and put online, and the benefits of working with us to make that happen. So we'll update you. We'll also update you on all the newspaper projects we're working on right now, so you'll know what to expect from us over the next few months. So let me start with a brief overview of our website and our newspaper digitization workflow to give you an idea of how it works. The Digital Library of Georgia has been digitizing newspapers since 2007. And over the years, we've made vast improvements to the accessibility of Georgia newspapers. And in 2017, we released our current website, Georgia Historic Newspapers, which you see here on the slide. We sometimes refer to it as GHN, Georgia Historic Newspapers. And this website is supported by the Digital Library of Georgia, GALILEO, and the University of Georgia Libraries, with additional funding from partners like the Georgia Public Library Service, and cultural heritage institutions across the state. This online newspaper archive contains over 3.5 million Georgia newspaper pages, and we plan to hit the 4 million page mark next year. And there are over 1,000 newspaper titles available on the website from every region of the state. And that includes 151 of Georgia's 159 counties and papers from over 200 Georgia cities. It's the most geographically representative archive of Georgia newspapers available online. The GHN online archive contains newspapers from throughout the state's print journalism history. We've digitized the very first newspaper issue published in Savannah way back in 1763, when Georgia was still a colony. That was the Georgia Gazette newspaper. And the website also has newspaper issues published this year. And while most of the newspaper issues on the website are pre-1930, in the last 5 years, we've started focusing on digitizing 20th century newspapers. And we've also been working to diversify the content of GHN with Black-owned papers, titles published by the LGBTQ plus community, religious groups, newspapers, and many other underrepresented communities on the website. We're working to collect those newspapers and digitize them and host them online. And the best of all, Georgia Historic Newspapers is 100% free. All of the newspapers on the website are freely accessible and open to the public and can be accessed from anywhere in the world. The site has millions of page views each year and is widely used by those interested in researching the history of Georgia. So you might be wondering how we digitize all those newspapers. We usually start from the microfilm. Our Georgia Newspaper Project Division has been microfilming newspapers for over 70 years, and we have the largest collection of Georgia newspaper microfilm in the world. Most of the titles on the GHN website have been digitized from that microfilm because digitizing from microfilm is the least expensive approach. So when we decide to digitize a title, we put together an inventory of what issues are on the microfilm, and we send it to a vendor for digitization. We used to digitize newspapers in-house, but we've found that it's cheaper and much more efficient to work with a vendor to get that work done. So when we digitize newspapers in-house, we were putting out about 100,000 newspaper pages online each year. And now that we use vendors, it's closer to 400,000 pages each year. And we're constantly seeking out new ways to increase our efficiency and our output. So once the newspapers come back from the vendor, we check through them for accuracy and then load them on our GHN website. And we also take a copy of those files and preserve them on our library's archive preservation system so that they'll be safely stored and available for future generations. So you might be wondering, how do I get my local paper included? That's a question I get all the time when I talk about newspapers. Because newspaper history is so specific to the area that it publishes about. So the first step in the process is you'll need to reach out to us to let us know you're interested in having your paper digitized and included on the GHN website. So you'll need to tell us what title or titles and date ranges you're interested in digitizing, and we can put together a page count of what's available on microfilm for digitization. Once the page count's ready, which can take a month or so, depending on our workload, we'll send you a quote for what it would cost to digitize the newspapers. And I said reach out to us. At the end of the presentation, we'll share our email addresses so that you can contact us with that information. So securing funding is the next step in the process. So because we make all our newspapers freely available online and we use vendors for digitization, we depend on our partners to help us cover the cost of digitizing those papers. So some organizations are able to fund a digitization project through their pre-existing budget line. And if that's the case with you, we can move ahead and begin scheduling a project. But don't worry, we know that many libraries and other cultural heritage organizations don't have room in their budget to fund newspaper digitization, and we're here to help. The Digital Library of Georgia has worked with organizations and groups across the state to help secure the funding needed to digitize their newspapers. So funding options. There are a number of funding options that have worked for our partners in the past. Among those options include the Georgia Public Library Service, or GPLS. GPLS has been working with us since we began digitizing newspapers. And if you're affiliated with a public library, Josh Kitchens can help you go over your options for funding a newspaper project. They have a limited amount of money each year to help fund these types of projects, And in addition, they can point you toward resources that might be helpful. We highly recommend that public libraries reach out to them. As I'm sure many of you know, they're an invaluable supporter of libraries throughout Georgia, and they've been a really great partner in helping us digitize newspapers across the state. A second option would be a Friends of the Library type organization. If you aren't part of a public library, you might consider reaching out to your local library to see if they have in their budget to fund a project like that, or if they have a Friends of the Library type organization that might be able to raise funds to cover a digitization project. A third option would be historical and genealogical societies. Genealogy and history or historical research are two of the most common uses for the Georgia Historic Newspapers website. And many of these types of local groups are passionate about having their local newspaper digitized, and they've been successful in financing digitization projects through their dues or through fundraising. So if you have one of those organizations in your area, you might consider reaching out to them. A fourth option for funding could be local foundations. Several local foundations provide community funding for a local history project like this and can provide grant funding through an application process. Organizations that have previously granted funds for newspaper digitization include the Francis Wood Wilson Foundation, the Knox Foundation, and the Tillotson Menlo Charitable Foundation. So if you're interested in a newspaper digitization project, you might search for other similar organizations in your area. Also, power companies usually have foundations associated with their Roundup programs, and a few have provided funding for newspaper digitization with us in the past. So that's another avenue you could investigate. I did want to point out that before you apply for any sort of grant funding for us to digitize newspapers, it's important to contact us first so that we can provide you with cost estimates. And also we'll need to make sure that we can schedule the project to meet any sort of financial or grant deadlines that come along with applying for that type of money. So yeah, please reach out to us and we can give you all the information you would need to apply for that type of grant from a local foundation. So all that being said, we're glad to help you locate funding opportunities. Just reach out to us, and if you're a public library, reach out to Josh Kitchens at GPLS, and we can discuss your options. Okay, so after funding, or it could even be before funding is located, when we're doing a page count to prepare a quote for you, we'll need to investigate the copyright status of a newspaper. So for any newspapers published after 1928, that's the date stopping point where we'll need to address copyright status, because anything published before 1928 is in the public domain and no permission is required to digitize that and host it online. So we have two options for addressing copyright. Some organizations have relationships with a local newspaper publisher, and they've been able to get signed permission from them. So that we can host their newspaper on the GHN website. And this is an excellent option if the opportunity exists. If you're interested in seeking permission from a publisher, and many have been successful in doing so, just let us know and we can provide you with the necessary form that would allow us to host those papers online. We also have the second option of performing a copyright investigation. Over the last few years, we've been using Library of Congress recommendations to examine the copyright status of newspapers. Publishers were required to print a copyright notice in their paper and also register that copyright with the government. And the good news is that very few newspapers did that. It's good news for us. And a vast majority of the papers we have investigated are in the public domain because publishers didn't properly copyright their papers. So when you make a request from us to digitize a newspaper, we'll take care of that copyright investigation for you, which could allow us to digitize a newspaper through 1989. Anything published after 1989 would definitely need written publisher permission, And so if you're interested in anything in the 1990s or up to the present day, we could talk about how you might talk with a publisher to see if they would be willing to share permission to allow us to host it online. Okay, so once a newspaper project is funded, we take care of everything. We prepare our own copies of the microfilm. We have it digitized through a vendor. We do all of the accuracy checks, all of the quality control. We host it on our GHN website, and we preserve the files for future generations. All you have to do is sit back and wait. We'll send you monthly updates on the status of the project. And anytime you want an update between those monthly status updates, just send us an email and we're happy to let you know where we are in the process. So now that I've kind of gone over how our newspaper digitization process works and how funding works, I'm going to pass the presentation over to Daniel. And he's going to talk with you about the advantages of digitizing your local newspaper with us. Daniel?
Hello, everybody. I'm the project manager for our National Digital Newspaper Program grant, and I'm going to start with why you should digitize your newspapers with us. So there are a lot of companies and organizations out there that digitize newspapers. We've met a lot of them, and they are good people who do good work. But I just wanted to talk about some of the benefits of partnering with the DLG for your newspaper digitization projects. So first, the Georgia Historic Newspapers website is the most comprehensive online archive of Georgia newspapers. You'll find more Georgia counties and cities represented on this website than anywhere else. In fact, we've digitized newspapers from 95% of Georgia's counties, and we are working with the Georgia Public Library Service to achieve our goal of including papers from all of Georgia's counties. The papers you'll find on GHN on GHN are also diverse in nature. You'll find papers from communities large and small. There are both urban daily papers and rural weeklies available for research. We have school papers, Black-owned newspapers, religious papers, LGBTQ+ papers, and even the first Native American newspaper published in the United States. You can also find papers published within the last decade thanks to our Born Digital project, which involves us collecting digital newspaper files directly from publishers. With millions of page views each year, this is the go-to website for researchers interested in searching through the most extensive collection of Georgia historic newspapers online. So second, this research is always free and open to the public. At the Digital Library of Georgia, we work with librarians to make information and cultural resources free and openly available to the public. This is also true with the Georgia Historic Newspapers website. All the newspapers digitized can be accessed through the website from anywhere in the world. It is all free and openly available at no cost, with no passwords, plugins, or geographic restrictions. You just go to the website and start searching, and most importantly, it will always be free and openly available. This is the biggest benefit of digitizing your local papers with us. These papers will be freely available, freely accessible to everyone, everywhere. Also, this is digitizing your newspapers in partnership with the DLG means you will get the best search results. As mentioned before, we digitize from our unused master microfilm collection. That means the images on the film are as clear and pristine as possible. When we digitize the microfilm, it is OCR'd, so software reads the words on the microfilmed newspaper page. It makes it machine readable for keyword searching, like you see here on this slide. Microfilm that has been in use by the public has been well loved by patrons, which means it will have wear and tear, scratches, and scuffs. This can reduce the accuracy of word searches performed by researchers, and they could miss out on information hidden in the newspapers. As you know, it is very important to users that their keyword searches are as accurate as possible, so they don't miss out on a name or place that is important to their research. Also, scanning from the original master negative film provides a better quality scan than if we were to scan from a public reel, which is actually a copy of a copy. Just like with photocopies, duplicates have lower resolutions than the original source. That's why we scan from our original negative copies, so that we can achieve the clearest possible scan, which will provide the best keyword searching experience for patrons. We also digitize according to the Library of Congress standards, which means our digital scans are high enough quality to ensure that you get the best looking image and the best search results when using GHN. Third, if you partner with us to digitize your newspapers, we don't require that you sign any kind of exclusive contract. If you decide in a few years that you would like to digitize newspapers with someone else, or you want to host your own newspaper website, that's totally fine with us. We can even give you a copy of the newspaper files to use for yourself, which is most important to us. What is most important to us is that we make the papers freely available online to the public. If other organizations want to host the newspapers at the same time later, that's okay with us. Your content gets online faster when you partner with us to digitize your papers. There are no long embargo periods to wait for your paper to go online. When we complete the digitization of your paper, we put it up on the website. These projects are usually completed within a fiscal year so that your patrons get access to them as soon as possible. And we're local. We are located at the University of Georgia Library in Athens. We know and have worked with many of you in the past. And if you don't know me, you probably know Donnie or Josh or someone else at GPLS or the DLG. Because we're local and we only work on Georgia newspapers, that means we're easily accessible. You can reach us by phone or email and can expect a quick response to your questions. If there's a problem with the newspaper that has been digitized, you can let us know and we'll get it fixed. It also means that we know these materials really well. We've both lived in Georgia our entire lives, and we've been working with Georgia newspapers for a combined 24 years. We know the subject well and can be here to answer questions if you need us. We have long-standing relationships with GPLS and cultural heritage organizations across the country, and it is our goal to make your history more accessible to the public. So, before you make any final decision on digitizing your local newspapers, come talk with us. We can discuss your different options, and regardless of what you decide to do, we can help. So I hope that gives you a general overview of our process and the benefits of partnering with us. And before we take questions, I wanted to tell you about the projects we're currently working on. As I mentioned earlier, I work on the National Digital Newspaper Program, which we refer to by its acronym, NDNP. So I'll start with my project. So since 2017, we've participated in the NDNP, which is a partnership between the National Endowment for the Humanities and the Library of Congress. This program's goal was to digitize historically significant newspapers published between 1690 and 1963. For each 2-year grant cycle, participants deliver 100,000 digitized pages, copy negatives from master microfilm, descriptive title essays, and a survey of non-NDNP newspapers archives available online elsewhere. Newspapers digitized as a part of the grant are made freely available on the Library of Congress's Chronicling America website, and the DLG also provides these images via GHN. Past cycles have focused on papers of record in coastal and southern Georgia, the Progressive Era, and underrepresented communities. And our most current grant, the one I'm working on right now, focuses on Black-owned newspapers, including the Savannah Herald, the Savannah Tribune, Atlanta Inquirer, and the Atlanta Daily World. We will begin releasing those first titles or the first set of batches in the fall. So just real briefly, these slides over here, so as a snapshot of the Chronicling America beta site. They've just done a redesign. And if you look closely, I think the Cordial Dispatch is over here, which is a Georgia paper. So all the newspapers digitized through the NDNP grant are also hosted on the Library of Congress's Chronicling America website, which hosts over 20 million historic newspaper pages from all 50 states, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. The Chronicling America website is also free and open to the public, just like GHN. So just as I mentioned earlier, this is the new Chronicling America homepage, and as well as a sample of Georgia titles available on the website. Just like GHN, all the content on this site is OCR'd and keyword searchable. And if data analysis is your thing, Chronicling America has publicly accessible API for gathering information. So that's it for me. I'm going to hand y'all back over to Donnie, who can tell you about all the other exciting newspaper digitization projects we have going on currently.
Hey, give me just a second here. Having trouble bringing my video back up. Okay. So, so another one of our projects that we've been working on is the Georgia Public Library Service partnership. We've been working with them over the last few years to digitize newspapers from smaller underrepresented counties. And so this year, we've added newspapers from Baker County, Bryan, Clayton, Wheeler, and Wilkinson counties, all for the first time. And this fiscal year, we're going to be continuing that work with GPLS to add new counties to the GHN website. But those selections haven't been finalized yet. So if there's a county that's underrepresented on the website, please feel free to contact us and we'll add it to the list of higher priority papers to add to the website, because our goal is to eventually have all of Georgia's counties represented on the website. We're also currently working to expand the availability of the Athens Banner Herald on the website. About 10 years ago, we made issues available from the 1830s to 1928, which was when the public domain line stopped. But our new project is going to make the Banner Herald available online from 1928 to 1965. And this is a daily newspaper. So that project will be adding 120,000 pages of Athens content to the GHN website. And if you're interested in the history of the University of Georgia, then it's a great resource that we'll be adding over the next few months. We've already added papers, I believe, through 1935 as of today, and we'll be continuing to add them over the next month or two. We also have been working on projects with several cultural heritage organizations to digitize their local papers. We just completed a project with the Newton County Public Library System with funding from the city of Covington to digitize the Covington News from 1942 to 1969. And that's an additional funding resource that I didn't mention before. A lot of times local cultural heritage organizations have been able to work with the city or use SPLOST funding to help fund these type of projects. So you might also think about getting in touch with your local government to see if they have something in their budget line to help digitize a local newspaper. Organizations, like I said, have been successful with that in the past, including most recently the Covington News, which we added through 1969, and there's a lot of great papers there. Just last week, we released the Somerville News from 1980 to 2000 in partnership with the Chattooga County Historical Society with a grant from the Tillotson-Menlo Charitable Foundation. We've been working with the Chattooga County Historical Society for several years now. They've funded digitization of their local paper in phases, which is also an option. If you're interested in helping fund a paper, is you don't have to pay for it all at once. What could happen is if you're interested in doing one chunk, say 40 years of a paper, because that's the funding you're able to locate in that current year, and then in the following year, you're able to locate some additional funding, we're happy to digitize a newspaper in phases like that. That can be very useful for people in terms of funding a project. We also just completed a partnership with the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Atlanta to digitize their Georgia Bulletin newspaper from 1981 to 1990. That's also an organization that we worked with in phases to put up their paper over time. And not just with the Archdiocese of Atlanta, but also the Diocese of Savannah to put their paper up as well. And so if there's a religious newspaper that you're interested in putting up, we work on those papers. So as you can see, we're always working on with a variety of partners to digitize newspapers of interest from across the state and all sorts of different newspapers. I don't have a slide for it, but we also have and have been working on our Born Digital newspaper program, which we kind of mentioned in passing a little earlier. So over the last 70 years, we've been microfilming newspapers, but as of this summer, we're going to cease microfilming newspapers for several reasons. The technology's become too expensive to maintain over time because of obsolescence. It's difficult to find the parts. It's difficult to find technicians who are able to work on those cameras. And so we're transitioning to collecting born digital files from newspaper publishers. And when I say born digital, I mean that these days when newspaper publishers put together a newspaper issue, they do so usually in PDF form. It starts as a digital form and then they send it to the publishers for printing. And you may see that sometimes if you have a newspaper subscription, you can usually access those PDFs on their website. Sometimes they're called, they're referred to as print-ready PDFs. So what we're doing is we're working to start collecting these PDFs directly from newspapers and then hosting them on our GHN website. And so far, I believe we have about 30 titles that are participating in our project. And we've begun hosting those papers online. Most of them range back to about 10 to 15 years ago up to the present day. And we offer publishers embargo periods. So if they would like their paper not to be hosted online for a year after its original publication, we're great with embargo periods for those publishers. And so if you're interested in seeing, because you've ordered microfilm in the past, or you would like access to those more recent newspapers, and you would like to see your publisher, your local newspaper publisher, participate in our program, please reach out to us. We can provide you all the information you need to take to the newspaper publisher if you have a relationship with them or you know how to get in touch with them. We can share all the information you might need to spark their interest in participating in that program, because we'd love to get as many newspaper publishers on board as possible so that we can make that stuff accessible the way it was on microfilm in previous years. So all that being said, that's what we have for today. We wanted to leave a lot of time for questions because with newspapers, there are always very specific questions from people who have specific newspapers, specific situations, funding questions. So we wanted to leave a lot of time for questions. So I'm gonna close the presentation and stop sharing that. I'm gonna start my video here. Hi, everyone. And so we'd be glad to take your questions about newspapers.
So I see one in the
Okay.
Q&A already. I don't know if you can see that, Donnie, but I'll go ahead and read it out loud here.
Great, thank you.
Based on your current holdings of microfilms, general estimate of percentages, sorry, let me, based on your current holdings of microfilms, what's the general estimate of percentage of resources left to be digitized?
Oh, that's a good question. We haven't calculated an exact percentage. We have, I think, close to 100% of papers that are pre-1880. So we've done most of the papers that are available in the 19th century. Now, whenever anyone asks me that, they say, so when are you going to finish digitizing Georgia's newspapers? And my answer is always, I'm not going to finish it. Whoever comes after me is going to finish it. And so it's I don't know the exact percentage. It's a good question, but there's still a lot of stuff to be done, particularly in the 20th century. And we, like I said, we're moving at a rate now that's a 400% increase of what we were doing 5 years ago. And we have some plans to increase that percentage in future years as well. So maybe I will get it done in my lifetime or in my career. But I would say it's probably, based on estimates, we've done about somewhere between 5 and 10% of the paper so far. So there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yes, job security for sure.
Right, yes.
All right, we got another question that's come in the chat from Muriel. How long is permission grant by publisher for digitization valid?
Right, good question. Okay, so our form grants perpetual permission to host it online. Basically, it's open-ended. We haven't had a publisher that's wanted to retract the agreement, but there's no closing date on how long we're able to host it online. It's open-ended. And usually the paper will specify which titles they want to allow us to host online. And sometimes they'll include a date range as well. But usually it's just the title. They're usually open to whatever date ranges we want to make available online, but there's currently no limit to how long we are able to host them online using that form. And if you're interested in contacting your local publisher to get that sort of permission, then please reach out to us. We'll provide you with all the forms needed and any kind of information you might want to have as you're talking to those publishers.
All right, you got a thank you from Muriel. Other questions from folks?
Yeah, if you have questions about funding or specific titles or plans for the future, anything, we're definitely open to it. We're really excited, Daniel's project, while you guys are typing, to work on that NDNP project with the Library of Congress and NEH. We're excited to be able to do the Savannah Tribune and the Atlanta Daily World up through, let's see, we'll be doing the Tribune through 1940, and we'll be doing the Atlanta Daily World through the early 1960s, which will be really exciting, especially the Daily World having that daily news from a Black-owned paper is really exciting for us. I see we got a question from Mike White. Any news about archiving more flagpole issues? Yes, I have good news for you, Mike. We are loading flagpole issues. I need to check. I think we just loaded ones from the previous year. So I'm gonna need to double check that, but the publisher of the flagpole has provided us with all of his backlog of digital files, and we'll be adding, if we haven't already added them all, we'll be adding them all this summer. So the entire run of the flagpole, which for those of you who don't know, I should specify what the flagpole is. The flagpole is a local, yeah, Mike's excited about it. It's a local paper that started out providing music news to the Athens community in the late 1980s, and has since expanded to cover local politics, local culture. It's a very beloved publication here in Athens, and they still cover the music scene, and it's a great publication, and the publisher has been really excited to share all of his backlog with us and to make his stuff available to the public, free of charge and openly available. So that's been really exciting.
Yep. A lot of good photography from local events as well, including probably some from Mike White, who is a staple taking photography of bands around the Athens area.
Yeah, if you do a search for Mike White, tons of flagpole issues come up.
Yep. We got another question from Rachel. What about student newspapers from small communities? Are those possible to be included in the GNP, like the homeschool co-op student paper?
Yes, we would be glad to host those papers. We have some school newspapers right now. We have the University of Georgia's paper. Mercer University's paper is on our website. And so we're open to not just college papers, but homeschool papers. There are a few high school papers that exist, and we host at least one of those online. So yeah, we're open to all sorts of student newspapers. It's part of our effort to try to diversify what's available online on the GHN website, and it provides news that's really unique to those type of papers. So yeah, we'd be excited to work on that kind of project. Just get in contact with us.
As another question from Muriel asking if there's a limit on how small a print run of a paper that can be digitized. If they've only got 1 or 2 issues of some papers, is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay. Some really valuable newspapers were very short run, or for whatever reason, there's not much of those papers available. And so I said we have over 1,000 titles available. There's a good 100 of those that are 1 to 2 issue papers. And it's very easy for us to put online, and we're very willing to do it. Some of those are unique papers that are nearly lost to history. So it's really valuable to get some of those orphan papers, some of those really small runs online. So yeah, let's do it. We're open to putting small runs online for sure.
This is from me, Donnie. I'll just ask
Yeah.
real quick. Is there some of the Born digital content that you've been adding? Is there anything particular there that you'd like to highlight that you're especially excited about?
Yeah, let's see. One of our partners is the Savannah Tribune. which we host on the website. It's the Black-owned paper in Savannah, and we've digitized stuff from the 1870s all the way through 1940 so far, and we're currently working on 1940 to 1963. Plus, we're collecting their digital files, so we're getting stuff from the most recent decade. So that's really exciting. We're hosting through that Born Digital project a lot of small town weeklies, which are great because that local news. It's really, I call it kind of a version of Facebook because it contains really community-based information about folks that you won't find in larger city papers. And so yeah, we're not working with the larger newspaper publications on that project. A lot of them, like the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Augusta Chronicle, they have their own archives. But we're working with a lot of the smaller community weekly newspapers to make their stuff available online. So we've been really excited to do that, and they're excited to be working with us. So it's been great. And so if you have a local paper you think might be interested in that, please reach out to them. We can give you all the information you need to do that.
Great. And I think I cut you off right as you was about to point out that Josh confirmed that we've got the flagpole through December of last year. So that's awesome.
Yes,
Let's take a look.
yeah, that's pretty great. And if you've never looked through the flagpole, it's a great paper. You can find out what band played where on what day for the last 40 years. It's pretty great. Or 30 years? Yeah, I can't do my math. The last 35 years. So it's pretty great. And yeah, we're constantly working to expand what we make available through that Born Digital project. And some of them are community newspapers we've done. So there's a retirement newspaper we're collecting. So we're trying to get papers from all sorts of different communities represented on the website, which has been really great.
Any other questions? I'll ask one more while
Yeah.
folks are giving. I'm just curious about, I mean, I know we've talked about using AI, to help with, some of the, digitization options available. What are your thoughts on AI and having access to this kind of resources? Helpful, not helpful, remains to be seen.
Yeah, I think with historical newspapers, most of the news with AI has been coming in the area of optical character recognition. So for those, I'm sure many of you are familiar with it, but for those of you that aren't, optical character recognition that we mentioned is usually when you use software to read the words on a page image and create machine readable text out of it. And we use that machine readable text for searching. So we can do hit highlighting searching. We have coordinates associated with each word, and we can create those little highlighting boxes that everybody loves when they're searching through the newspapers. And so one of the benefits of AI, it looks like, is going to be with our OCR. So, when you're reading a historic newspaper or you're running it through OCR and the software is reading the page, it can be inaccurate. We try to aim for 90% accuracy with OCR, which usually possible, but sometimes not, depending on the scan, the microfilming. Usually the scan is not the problem. It's usually the microfilm or the paper itself. You have things like mold spotting on old newspapers that were microfilmed, or you have ink smearing, or in the 1880s, they really packed text in tight in small columns. And when you do that, the ink is very close to each other, and it makes it difficult for a software program to read the words on the page. And so AI, from what I understand, is going to be valuable for helping figure out at a more accurate rate what those words are on a page. And so the result theoretically will be better searches for users when they're on the website. Like I said, we're already over 90%, so we're very accurate, but that 10% of inaccuracy could be really valuable. And so hopefully it will improve the OCR. And I suspect over time we may want to go back, because we've been digitizing newspapers for 17 years. And the OCR technology has improved over time. And so I suspect at some point we're going to go back and re-OCR some of the earlier papers that we've digitized, which is, by the way, what the Library of Congress is doing right now. The technology has improved, so they're re-OCRing. And so I suspect we'll do the same thing. So our accuracy and the word searches on the GHN website will only get better over time. Hopefully.
Excellent. Thank you, Donnie.
Yeah.
Well, we are just about at quarter till, so I will pause and see if anybody has any last burning questions that they would like to put in. If I don't see any here, I will just ask everybody to thank Donnie and Daniel for their presentation. This was, even though I know quite a lot about DLG and Georgia Historic Newspapers, I still learn something every time I listen to one of these. So thank you guys so much for your time today. And everybody on the call, we will see you back. We start at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. So thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much, everybody.
All right, bye-bye.